Hi everyone, I think we can get going. Welcome here this morning. My name is Rita Wiesner. I think I've met most of you actually at the Regional Innovation Pop-Ups in February and March, so it's really good to see some familiar faces here again today. We've got a great workshop planned for you today, and we've got a very special presenter here as well, Joy Taylor. She's one of our WiRE team project officers and has a lot to do with various activities in the WiRE program. And certainly Joy comes with a wealth of experience in the entrepreneurial field, in terms of developing women entrepreneurs. They work with startups, etc. And Joy is the co-founder and the community manager at Canvas co-working space in Toowoomba. So Joy, we're very happy to have you on board today. Thank you very much for sharing your wealth of experience with us today. Today is an important workshop because it also feeds into the WiRE Hub program that's starting next month. With the WiRE Hubs, what will happen is you'll receive an email to explain it to you, to guide you to the webpage where you can sign up to become part of a WiRE Hub. And we talked about that at the Regional Innovation Pop-Ups, but you will find all the information containing in the email and on the website. But it is all about being part of a small group of women entrepreneurs who will support you through your entrepreneurial journey. And it's going to stretch over a 12-week period where you have a particular goal, entrepreneurial goal that you want to reach starting in week 1 and ending in week 12. You'll have peer mentors, you'll have outside external mentors, you'll have WiRE coaches and coordinators helping you, supporting you in whatever it is you want to achieve in the next 12 months. So a lot of the aspects that Joy will be covering today, you will also be able to pull that into your journey over 12 weeks. So we'll send out information soon about the WiRE Hub program. Now, just a few aspects. Joy will tell you all about, give you an introduction about the workshop today in a minute. But I think just a few logistics. Can everybody just mute, please? You'll see bottom of your screen there's a mute button. It's just to make sure we don't have a flow through of sound during the presentation. If you have a question, just make sure you unmute so that you can ask your question. I think in terms of operating the workshop, Joy will be give you plenty of time to also ask questions, but she will do that in a coordinated way. So maybe if you can just wait for her to give you the opportunity to ask questions, that would be great. Then also you will see in the bottom of your screen there's a chat box. So if you want to say something while Joy is presenting the workshop and so forth, I can pick up on the chat as well. So if you have a particular concern or something, shoot that through to me, and then I can also talk about it if necessary. Otherwise, I can chat back to you. So welcome this morning, and Joy, it is over to you. Enjoy the workshop, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, Rita. So hopefully, if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Yep. Okay.
Yep, I can hear.
If there's an issue, just send Rita a chat and she can jump on and let me know. So before we get into today, I just want to just explain a little bit. You might be able to see on one of the pictures, depending on what you can see. I'm here at Canvas Co-working Space in Toowoomba, and I've got a lovely group of ladies here physically with me, so they can all give you a little wave. Although I think my phone's ringing, so I'm not sure if it's working or not. So that will stop. So you'll be able to see them as well, and I can see a few of you at a time. So depending on if you're putting your hand up, I may not see you because I can't see you all at once. But if you do have something to ask, please just type it in the chat, and Rita will pick up on that, and we'll be sure to pause and cover what we need to. But I will give you time to ask questions as we go throughout the session. The most important thing is that you do have something to write with. So whether you're typing on your laptop or you have pen and paper, it's really important that as we work through this, it is a workshop, that you're applying what you're thinking about to your own life and your own business, and making notes as you go, so that when we come to the end, you can start to pull those together and then actually take them forward and make them useful, because that's the purpose of the workshop. We want you to be able to use the information that you have come up with. It is very much about yourself. So wherever I give an example wherever I give an example of something, if you feel that that isn't something that actually applies to you in the same way, that's correct. It probably doesn't, but you'll apply it in your own context. You know, I kind of liken it to horoscopes. If you read your horoscope, you can take that any way you like and apply it in your own life, however it fits. So it's really important to make sure that you're thinking about it relative to where you are in your business, whether you're just starting your business, whether your business has been running for a while and you're perhaps looking to grow or scale your business. If you're working within an organisation and you're perhaps looking to change the culture or a product or service within an organisation that you work in, you're going to take this and apply it to wherever you're at. So if you get stuck on that though, and you can't work out how that would possibly apply to you, then that's when we want you to say, and we'll try and give another example that might help you get on that same page. Now Suzanne has just joined us as well. So here we've got Margaret and Lisa and Joe and Shannon and Suzanne here in the room with us. And in a couple of minutes, we're going to have a little, I shouldn't say little, he's very large, guest pop in and say a quick hello to everybody as well, and just share a little bit more from the statewide perspective of the whole ecosystem around supporting entrepreneurs, and that's Mark Sowerby, Queensland's Chief Entrepreneur. So he's going to drop in a minute. He's just wrapping up a session that he's in. So hopefully you've just all seen the slide change. If you haven't, let Rita know, but you should be able to see our slides. So today is about preparing to be successful on purpose. Hi, how are you?
Sorry.
You're all right, no worries. What's your name?
Lee.
Lee, thanks Lee. So we do want to make sure we prepare, and as we said in the promo materials, if you fail to prepare, then you're preparing to fail. If you don't have a plan, it's very difficult to actually achieve what you're setting out to achieve, because you don't necessarily know what that is. If you don't have a goal, it's very hard to reach it. So we want to make sure that you all have that, and particularly moving into the WiRE program and the hubs, having a clear plan will allow us to make sure that we're supporting you in the best way possible to succeed in achieving what it is that you want to achieve, no matter what that might look like. So it's obviously not going to be the same for everybody. So today, my slide is there we go. Okay, so there's a few things we're going to cover. We do only have 2 hours, so we're going to move through, but I do want to make sure we're giving you enough time as we go through to actually think about these things for yourself, but you will have access to the slides afterward. The slides are not this is the wordiest slide you're going to see, so a lot of it is what we talk about, but it's being recorded as well, so you can come back and listen to the audio if you find that you can't quite keep up with the pace to fit it all in within the 2 hours. But we're going to be looking at the goals that you're wanting. We're going to be gaining some clarity around why that's important to you, and specifying what the reward will be if you do meet those milestones and goals, but also acknowledging that if we don't follow through on everything, or things don't work and we don't ask for the right help, there may be a consequence for you at the end for yourself or your business. So knowing what that is and being able to recognise that from the beginning, identifying potential roadblocks and things that might come up that might prevent you from being able to achieve your goals, so recognising them as early as possible and working out ways to move around those. Making sure that we're really clear about what those steps and milestones are that's going to make you successful, and why you would want to spend your time doing those things, so making sure that they're essential and have purpose. Looking at some of the tools and resources that you can access and use to manage the process, and also making sure that you're allocating the time required to actually take the action. So before we get started, I will introduce Mark.
So this is sort of what I did, and it worked. And we had, so Blue Sky was an interesting journey. We were a startup, started in July 2006. And about 18 months in, I sort of was just following, I started Blue Sky Private Equity, and I had no private equity background. And so what I did is I was exploring all the things that I like to do. So you want to have a business that you enjoy doing. Like, you don't want to have a business where you go to work with people you don't like, doing something you don't like, which is why you start your own business, to get away from all that stuff. So I did that. And over 18 months, I was going down this particular path. And then eventually I met a guy who was a Harvard professor who gave me the clue as to what business I should build. And one of the ways that we got to the answer, which I think is really effective. So there's some really good Harvard rules that you can take away with your business to give you some context. And so nothing worthwhile happens in less than 10 years, which is unfortunate, but it is. Now there's exceptions to the rule, but these are the rules. So just run with the rules. And remembering that Blue Sky now is a $650 million company. We've invested in 44 companies along the way. So we've seen 5,000 deals. So we've seen a lot of businesses, and we just find, like anything, you look at enough stuff, you sort of work out what the rules of success are. So 10 years is a really interesting thing. So what you've got to do is wherever, let's just say your business starts on July 1st, just to keep things really simple for me. So 10 years from now, the way to work out where you've got to go and to stop yourself chasing shiny things is, and to keep focus, is to work out what it is that you want your story to be. And that's a personal decision. So in other words, Suzanne, so it would be, so yeah, you've got to tag something. so it would be something like, so in 10 years, you say, what's my story going to be? Like, if someone says to you, what do you do, Suzanne? That you say, whatever it's going to be. So for me, what Heidi and I decided together, my wife and I, was that it would be financial freedom by 45, which sort of rhymed. Now, that was not about being rich. What that was about was having freedom. Because what money doesn't bring you happiness, it brings you freedom. And so the goal was that at 45, my boys would be teenagers, and you've got to be around your boys when they're teenagers, when they flip from mum to dad. And so, and if somebody in our family or myself or anybody else got sick, that we could either give them as much money as they ever needed, or that we wouldn't have to work ourselves. And that can be as little as, at the end of the day, we're not extravagant people, so it wouldn't need to be a lot of money, but it needed to be freedom.
Sorry, Mark, can you just come a little bit, stay close to the computer, please? Otherwise, you kind of just drift away. Thanks very much.
No, I drift away a lot. And so the closer I get to the screen, the worse I feel about myself. So, so what you end up with is this 10-year story. And you've got to work on that, actually. And I usually think it takes about 6 months. I'll tell you what I used to do is I used to treat Australia Day as the day that I had to make the decision by. There's two reasons for that. One is it's the end of the school holidays and summer holidays, so you've had time to reflect and to have some time out away from work and the stuff that you're doing. And the second thing is that I always felt that whatever I was doing needed to be good for Australia. You know, this is that social contribution. So the goal was that at 45 I could retire, which we ended up doing, and that then we could do stuff for free. So the government would pay me to do this role, but I wanted to be able to give back without being a burden at any level. So in other words, I could afford to travel and play for everything and never be a burden, and that's where we got to. And it really feels great, to be honest, to be in that position to be able to do that. It means that you're also helping completely, and people would see that you're helping in a pure manner. So then you get your 10-year story, which takes a while, and you need to do that with your partners, and you need to really think about what you want that to be. And in the first 18 months, you can change the story. But by the end of the 18 months, you need to be sure that you know what that story is. And then whatever it is that you're doing with these goals and the stuff that you've got with your list here that you're pursuing, you can move that around a bit in that time. But once you have worked out what the story needs to be, then when you've got a new idea or a new opportunity or a new thing that you can go to or a new employee you can bring on or a partner or whatever it might be, then if it doesn't fulfill your story, then you don't do it. Now, as an example for Blue Sky in the financial crisis, at the end of that, there were some listed funds that we could have bought really cheaply and made some really good money out of it. But we don't do listed stuff. And all of the guys in our business, what we were broke, like we're trying to earn money, we could have really made some good money out of this. But I refused to let the guys buy them, even though it was very obvious to buy them, because it was just going to make money, but it was going to distort our story. Mm-hmm. And then we couldn't fulfill our destiny in a pure manner, because I knew what our destiny was. And so we didn't do it. stay the course, and that business will be $1 billion company in 1 or 2 years, and there'll be a multi-billion dollar company after that, because we stayed pure to the story. And we never changed our story. It never deviated. We got really good at telling it. You get really good at telling your story. You tell your story 10 times and you realise to someone, and you realise that there's a particular line that you use where everyone always goes, oh, I get it. And so you suddenly learn, you see that reaction, and you've got to note that. And when people are looking at you, bored out of their brains, that your story's not working that well, but keep powering on and keep trying new stuff. And maybe, can I go in a couple more? Is that all right? Sorry, Joy. So a couple of other, then you've got to come back to so 10 years is too long. So, when you go to a job and people say, how long do you think you'll be here? 3 to 5 years. Everyone says 3 to 5 years. That's because they can't think further than that. The Chinese got this right. So 5-year plans. Now, when you do the 5-year story, the 5-year story is the point at which you've earned the right to fulfill the 10-year story, which is the big story. So the first 5 years, you're only scrambling and working your guts out and everything else, and everything's crazy and stuff goes wrong and nothing ever seems to be working. But through that 5 years, you're earning the right to reach the point at which you can then see that you could fulfill your 10-year story, your 10-year journey. The first 5 years is always the hardest. It can be 7, it can be 3, but 5 years is a good number. I don't do business plans. What I do is action lists. So then once I know the stories become the filter. You need filters to stop yourself from doing stupid things and wasting time and money on things that don't matter, and which is a big part of it. This is a resource allocation. You're a limited resource. Apply it to the things that work well. Then I do 6-month bite-sized chunks. So when you've got a big problem, which you have, which is to solve the 10-year story, you got to break it into bite-sized chunks. So what I did, this is how I did it. I'm a dinosaur. As are you, because you're writing stuff down. Yeah. So I use a paper diary, a Collins diary, or full page thing. And so if I was at July 1st, I would write on December 31st, all the actions, every little thing that I had to do. It can be up to 100, it can be 5, but it's usually, I like the detail. And I would so if we had to do 2 private equity deals, I would put private equity deal number 1, private equity deal number 2. They're separate deals. They're not just like do 2 private equity deals. And because what you want to do is you want to be crossing them off. So you do all the things and then you look at those actions and you make sure all those actions are taking you closer. You just have to get closer. Progress is progress. Don't worry, it'll J-curve. It does J-curve at the end. And so you need that list of stuff. You cross it all off and make sure that whatever you do, no matter how hard it is, with 4 days to go to the end of the half year, and you've still got 6 to go, while everyone else is on holidays, you're on holidays. You're going to cross that list off by December 31. And you'll also get new ideas of new actions you have to have for the next 6 months. So you've obviously got to buy next year's diary. But you know how they don't have next year's diary, so the notes page at the end. So I would start writing out the actions that had to be completed for the next 6 months. And you do need to prioritise. And you can be a bit tricky where you shift a couple out and bring a couple in, but you've got to keep the same list. And what you'll find is that once you get used to that process, you'll get done in 6 months what you would normally get done in 12. So that means that you get there quicker and you get there more effectively. And also, you're solving your need for achievement. You know you're making progress by knocking those things out. And what you will for sure do is in the first part of the 6 months is you'll do the ones that are easy. Yeah. Okay, and then you'll be left with 5 and they're ugly and they're just sitting there. But you always feel better when you're crossing off a list. In fact, I'm so anal, I would actually, if I'd done some stuff, I'd write it out then cross it off. I know, it's a bit sad. So to do that. This is a really good, simple system. I was a lone ranger, you're on your own. This is a really good way to keep yourself disciplined and to keep progressing to your story. And then always back test your story to make sure it's going to be the thing that makes you happy. So one of the things I'm seeing with a lot of my friends, I'm 45 now, 46 in a few weeks, is that is a lot of them have been aiming for being a partner at a law firm or the CEO of their business or whatever it might be, Joy, and they've reached it. They're in the role and they're not happy. So don't stuff your story up and don't change your story because you're failing, because it doesn't happen like a spreadsheet. So the other thing I'll say before I get out of your hair, Joy, is you got to remember that you can do all this stuff and all you're doing is you're setting yourself up for success. You're not guaranteeing it. And what you'll get better at as you go on this journey is that mostly the success comes from winning moments. There are moments that you will have to win. It will be that you're in talking to a particular person, or you go to a function you weren't going to go to, and you meet a guy that's got a business that solves all the problems that you've ever had, and you just got along and he says, I'd love to help you. And you're looking for random moments, and you've got to recognise when they're on, and you've got to say yes to everything and go to everything. You have to do that. I can't imagine the opportunities that I missed by not going to stuff. I won lots of stuff in random moments, and I think of all the things I said no to and didn't go to, and I think, wow, I wish I'd gone to that. You've got to go to everything, especially when you're in your own business and you're on your own and you're trying to find ways through. Last couple of structural things, 2 more structural things.
Mark, sorry, Mark.
Yep.
We've got a question here from Emma. Just wondering if Mark can share his story as an example for us. And I know we have a structured workshop here this morning, so we don't have a lot of time. But I wonder if you could maybe share that in a couple of minutes or so.
The blue sky story?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I can do that really quickly. Is that okay, Joy? Joy's getting annoyed at me now. So but I know that look. I've seen that look when we were on the Ventura program. Okay, so I'll be really quick. Okay, so I'm from Warren, west of Dubbo, and then moved to Moree. So I went to a boarding school on a farm. I'm old enough to remember that we had party lines when we were young. So you'd wind it 3 times. Like there's no iPhones, there's no LinkedIn. I studied ag science because we didn't know anything different. I hated it. Backpacked around the world for a year. My dad really wanted us to go back to the farms that he'd built up. We weren't family farmers. He was sort of an entrepreneur that built these farms up through being smart. And my brother did ag science too. He's now in Ireland with IT. I fell in love with an Irish girl, played rugby over there. So I worked out at 22. I was working as an agronomist on the Darling Downs for seed grain sales and out of Pittsburgh, living in Toowoomba, playing rugby at Albany. And so I lived here twice. And I remember I was 22 and I was running across broccoli fields checking for bugs. There'd been a mice plague that had gone through and they killed them all with phosphorus. It was a frost, so all the carcasses were frozen. I'm running barefoot in the mud in the middle of winter across this thing and thinking, I have to change my life. And it took me 13 years then of working for various people and building stuff up and rebuilding businesses to build up enough capital and enough experience to feel like I could have a crack at 35. So Heidi and I put together about 730 grand of capital. We sold our house, that's selling everything. And then I launched Blue Sky Private Equity with no business plan. What I had worked out is that I really enjoyed building businesses. I love building stuff actually. And so I like building stuff. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just have a private equity company that builds our business, but helps other people build theirs too. We don't use debt. And that's what I started. Long story short, 18 months in, I went and did the Harvard Private Equity Venture Capital course. Just thought I could just go and do that. As it turns out, you can't just go and do that. You apply, and there were 80 spots, and there were 3,000 applicants. This is October 2007. So it's the sexiest time in the world to be in private equity. Every person in the world wants to do this course. But Harvard loved diversity, and so they wanted to start up. And there's this bloody hopeless business called Blue Sky Private Equity from Brisbane, which had 25 million under management, which was a forecast that wasn't real. We had 6. And then as a startup, and that was tiny. We thought that was huge. That was tiny. And Fidelity was there and all these big groups. I went and did this course. Best thing I ever did is I did the course, but I stayed for a week afterwards to reflect, and which is why we do Ventura. And I booked myself into the Doubletree Motor Inn, which is the hotel next to Harvard. I got lucky. There were no students there. All their lecturers are different to ours. They're animals. The lecturers, these guys got all their own venture capital groups. They do all the big deals in the world. And Josh Lerner, who's the head of that program, had been advising Steve Schwartzman from Blackstone, which is the biggest private equity group in the world, on how to change their business model. They've been working on a plan to change the business model for 6 years, and they just worked it out. Blackstone was going to list the next month, which I didn't know. And in that week, I got 6 years of consultancy fees that Schwartzman had paid this guy to give me the answer to say, here's what you should build. So we're building Blackstone in Australia, which is what. So suddenly all of these little ideas I had around private equity into real estate and hedge funds and venture capital and private equity, all these ideas I had suddenly coalesced into a goal. And I knew where we were going. And there's this great line that Josh gave me. He said, just remember, Mark, you're building a business just for 10 years from now to solve a problem Australians don't know they've got, which is we're all investing just in bonds, property and stocks. But everybody else in the world is investing into private markets, into startups, into scale-ups, into private businesses. That's where all the growth is. So 25% of the money around the world now goes into private markets, and it will soon be 50%. In Australia at the time, it was 4%, and it's now 19%. And everyone said to us, because they're all incumbents, this will never work. We're different in Australia, of course. And so we listed we did a listing as an entry, not an exit. which is a really good principle, I think. And we listed it with a market cap of 33 million. The stockbrokers raised 300,000. We had to raise the 6.5 million ourselves, which we did. No one does that. We did that. We found a way through. We got it done. We then set about telling everybody what we were going to do in the next 6 months, which is our 6-month bite-sized chunks. Then we would do it. We told them when we did it. We just built credibility doing that by doing what we said we were going to do. That business now has grown to be a $650 million company. It's growing at 50% per annum now. I retired from the business in September. Through the journey, like just the personal piece is, I was insane. I was an animal. I worked 5.5 years straight, no days off, at least half days, like on a Sunday or something. I'd have a half day watch the kids' sport on Saturday, then I'd go back to Brisbane. We lived at the Gold Coast. We lived at the Gold Coast because my in-laws were at Currumbin. My parents retired from Mooring to Byron Bay. And so you've got to have family support around your partner and when you're doing this stuff. I was insane. I was totally, I delivered, but the sense of urgency and crisis and unrelenting pain that you go through, you end up becoming someone that you don't necessarily want to be, but that's the person you have to be to get it done. And so to break that cycle, I decided, I knew at the 7-year point in the business, I knew that we were going to hit the 10-year story. It's all the same rules. I knew we were going to get there. And I said to our chairman, I need to break out of this cycle. It's not good for the business. It's not good for me. We're on this crazy cycle of having to deliver at the end of each 6 months, which is why I said 4 days to go, 6 things to go. We live that as a listed company too, which no one ever knew. And so I decided to swim the English Channel, and I'm not a very good swimmer, so it's quite problematic. And so I did a year of training for the training. So I did that at 42. And then I did a year of intensive training. I won't bore you with the story, but there's a couple of things that I learned out of that. So what I decided to do is what you instinctively do. I remember having a conversation with Heidi, with my wife, and I said, she said to me, why don't you've made people a lot of money now. Why don't you, and I'm on the board of Starlight Children's Foundation, and Starlight was putting in a new Starlight Express room into the hospital, the Lady Salinto Hospital, and they spent $3 million and they raised $2 million. So they're $1 million short, and it's bills from the builders saying, I'd love to get the money, thanks, that'd be great. So they're $1 million short, and Heidi said, why don't you just raise $1 million for Starlight? And I said, I don't want anyone to know that I'm doing this swim. It's a personal journey, which it was. But deep down, 20% get across, so there's a big failure rate, and deep down, I didn't want everyone to know that I failed, of course. But what I did is I flipped it. So she was right, and so I told Starlight to raise $1 million. So I said, that's fantastic, thank you. And we raised 1.2, which was good. And we turned it from being a private endeavour that no one knew about, like a startup that no one knows, so no one knows you're going to fail. So we turned it from that into the biggest grand final. So rather than minimising the pressure, I absolutely maximised it so that the price of failure was as high as it could be. I took my kids and wife on the journey. I literally prepared to die the channel that day because you have to get across mentally. It's a horrific experience. You can watch there's a documentary on the swim. It's a really good story on entrepreneurship. Actually, I do a speech around this on entrepreneurship, which we can't do today. If you just look up Mark Sowerby channel swim on YouTube, it's 41 minutes. Everything's in there for a reason. You should watch it. It's quite an interesting journey. But that's what entrepreneurship is like, sadly. It's really hard, but it changes your life. And so it's the hardest thing I've ever done, and it's the best thing I've ever done, which is how it works. And so, this is how you live a real life. But it took me 15 months to recover. I didn't really die in the channel, as it turns out. So if you look up Mark Sowerby, SOWERBY channel swim, you'll see it'll come up. SOWERBY.
Oh, thank you.
And just channel swim, and it comes up. And
so what year did you do that?
That was August 8th, 2015. So for anyone that follows rugby, that was the night that the Wallabies beat the All Blacks in Sydney. So that's so I decided to retire from the business, and the reason I retired from the business was really simple. Is my wife Heidi went back to the filter. And the filter was financial freedom by 45 and to be around when the boys hit teenage years. And Heidi said to me in June last year, she said, Lockie he's 14 then, he's flipped. He's gone from cuddling up to me, he's looking for you. Mm-hmm. And up till then, as a dad, you can do quality. And then you've got to do quantity because they're not open to you all the time. And so she said, you need to think about slowing down. And you can't slow down in this job. It's 100% or zero. So that left me with nowhere to go. And I watched him, and I took him on a South African trip with my other younger boy, to Patrick and watched him and realised she was right. He was a teenager, and I needed to be around. And so I surprised everybody and retired. And of course, what the market thought then was that Blue Sky must be blowing up, because which is what they would do. When things are getting bad, they would run. But of course, as a founder, you know the only way you can leave is when things are going well. And of course, it's going well. And so we had the press came for us, short sellers came for us. Every stockbroker said, Mark and Heidi are getting divorced. They just made stuff up. They had to have a reason, because why would you leave when it's going so well? And the way you leave is that you've got to make sure that you're self-aware enough to have absolutely no ego, understand your business. If the business is you, that's different. If the business is something that's going to be bigger than you, then you need to know that you've got when you've got to go. And so I left. So I'm not on the board. I got out completely. I kept more than half of our shares, which I still got, because I think it's going to be a much bigger business and be worth a lot more money, but also to demonstrate to everyone that I'm still with them. So now I'm doing this for a year, and I'll finish on October 12th, which I'm looking forward to. It's 7 days. I love it, 7 days a week, but I'm not fulfilling my story. I'm not with my voice. That's why I have to October 12th.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. That's wonderful. Look, I think it's so inspiring for us to kind of see where you can go in a very short period of time from here to absolutely here.
Okay, well, I'll jump out now and let you get back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. So, Joy, are you going to take us through how to get from here to there, please?
Okay. Awesome. Thankfully, Mark and I actually think quite similarly, and he didn't just contradict everything I'm about to tell you. So, so that's good. And for those of you, a couple of things Mark mentioned. I have just spent a week away. I was going to say cruising around the Whitsundays. It wasn't. It was paddling around the Whitsundays on that Ventura program that Mark mentioned. And if you're interested, you can check that out online as well. There'll be a video coming soon. So anyway, we now need to get into it. We are super behind time, but we'll pump on through. So the first thing that I want you to do is just actually now try and relax your mind a little bit. Mark spoke about having that 10-year story, but breaking it down into pieces. So he said 18 months or 6 months. I'm going to go with 12 because that's what's on my slide, because that's what I do. So I want you just to sit and think for a minute. In 12 months' time, what would you like to be doing? So sometimes we can go, okay, what do I wish I started 12 months ago that would be fulfilling now? I want you to do that in reverse. I want you to put your mind out 12 months and just think, ideally, where would you be? What would you be doing? What would things look like? So I want you to think. If you want to make a few notes, you can. A couple. We're going to do a bit of an exercise on it though, but just get your mind there. So we're 12 months into the future. So we're July 2018. Now what I want you to do is look at your diary, look at your calendar for that week. And I want you to have a look at that calendar in your mind of what that week is going to look like. So this week, in a year's time, what's going to be on your schedule? What do you need to be doing? Who are you meeting with? Where are you? Where are you going? What are you looking at as well? And how does it feel? And I want you to make a few notes about what you can see on that, 160 odd hours of a week, this week in 1 year's time. And I want you to write down those things. And it's your full week, okay? This is your personal life and your business life. It's not just 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. This is that whole week. What does it look like? Okay, what is it that you have achieved in this last year as well? So what have you accomplished? So we've looked at that week in your calendar, but I want you to think about what is it that's got you to that point? So what have you achieved or accomplished? I also want you to think about how are people finding you and contacting you? I want you to think about who's supporting your day-to-day activities. So who's helping you? I want you to think about how you're getting feedback from your customers. And also I want you to think about what systems, technology and things like that are you using at that point as well. And I want you to make a note of those. I'm going to give you a few minutes. Make a note of those things.
Joy, if anybody has a particular query, you're happy to take questions during the silence?
Yep. If you have a question, just speak up. So now you've thought, you're a year ahead, you've looked at your diary, you've thought about what you've achieved and how people are finding you, how you're getting feedback, what systems you're using in a year. I want you to think about what are the 3 biggest things amongst the, all of those things that are happening. What are the 3 really big things that you think need to happen that aren't already happening for you over that year to actually make that future a reality? So some of those things you may already be doing, and you're going to keep doing those. You may need to stop doing some things, but what are 3 big things that need to change for you to actually have that future that you see become a reality? Okay, so if we're good, if you've written down the three big things that need to happen, now what I want you to do is think about those 3 big things, and I want you just to try and break them apart, break them down into smaller things. So you've thought about 3 really big things that need to happen. If you take that one of those big things and pull it apart, now you might have 3, it might break into 3 pieces, it might break into 5 pieces. We're not talking about the little minute details yet, but we just want to take that big thing and just break it into a few smaller pieces so that it starts to seem a little bit more manageable. So it could be that you might, what your idea is of what you're working on might require you to have like a website that you can sell your product through, actually up and running and functioning. So you might break that down into, well, I need to have all the images and things for my website. I need to have all of the content for my website, and I need to have a payment platform for my website. That you could break it down into that. So just depending on whatever your big thing was, try and just separate it out into a few smaller pieces that will become a little bit more manageable. Another common one could be if it was around, raising your profile in your industry. It might be around, creating your media kit, your bio, and also meeting other influential people in that industry to become known. So, just try and think of how you can break down those things for yourself. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, and as Mark said, that first 18 months might be around, it might keep changing a little and changing a little bit, starting somewhere, gives you the option to then change, where if we don't have anything, we have nothing to change. So, but yeah, finding that rhythm and that story that you do want to create. What do you want that, we're only looking 1 year out, but if you are looking 10 years out, what do you want that 10-year story to be? Break it back down. Okay. So if you've been able to break those big rocks down into some slightly more manageable pieces, when we're looking at setting ourselves up to be successful, we then have to really smash those pieces into the tiny little things, all of the little pebbles and the sand, all of the actions. And as Mark said, it's about having that action plan, those things that you can cross off. And, you're going to have big things, but you've got to do all the little hard work to get to them. So if you think about those smaller rocks that you've got, if you have to break that down into all of the little tiny pieces that need to happen to make that happen, what are they? And so it's, it's what it is, when does that need to happen? So something might need to happen before something else. So starting to put them into some sequential order. Why as well, there might be some relevance. So I need to do this so that I can do that. Who else might need to be involved in that process? Where, and that can be, it might be an online thing, it might be a physical thing, you might need to go to something, you might need to be somewhere. And how long do you expect that will take? So I have just a little a little table there. You can use that sort of structure if you want to. But for each of those small rocks, it's thinking about, all right, what are the actual steps required to make that small rock a reality, which will then, when it joins with the other small rocks, makes that big rock a reality that makes that future week, month, year, life, whatever it might be for you, actually exist in the way that you envision it. So what are all those little things? So if you're thinking about what, if there's a when, a why, a who, a where, and a how long will that take you? And that how long might be, it might be a 15-minute job, or it might be a 2-hour job, or it might be, you know, if it's probably more than 2 hours, you could probably break it into smaller sections, and maybe you'll have two pebbles in that list for that item. So again, if we're looking at perhaps if you want an e-commerce website where you can sell your product through, and we spoke about breaking that down into maybe having the images and the content and a payment platform, for example, and there might be other things that you need around the images. It might be, you know, that you need to actually get the product. You might need to think about, do you hire a professional photographer? Do you know a professional photographer, or do you need to perhaps be introduced to somebody or get some recommendations? It might be around thinking of where would the appropriate place to be to do a photo shoot. Can you do it in your home? Do you need to buy any special equipment to do that if you're going to do it yourself? Is it a case of you know, having to do some editing of those photos afterward? Do you have the tools and the resources to do that, or do you perhaps need to borrow them or buy them or hire them? You know, those are the steps that need to go into your day to be able to make this eventuate. So we want you to think about all of those little things that need to be done, all of those actions that need to be done, so that you can then have achieved that rock, which makes the big rock, which will give you the outcome. So breaking it right down. So it could be a case of, if you're wanting to raise your profile in your industry, you might need to you know, attend a certain conference or attend a certain event and meet certain people. So you might need to put those into your list. Now, you might have some gaps in this list as well. You might not actually know who or where you need to, like, who to meet or where to go, but you know what you want. So then you have to think, okay, well, if I want that but I don't know this piece, how can I find out? And that may be another step. It might be contacting someone. It might be reading an article. It might be reading a book. It might be listening to a podcast, getting some other information, doing some research. Those things may go in your list so that it can help you then you know, build your skill set or your knowledge to the point where you can then act on another step that needs to be done to achieve that outcome that you're looking for. So break them down. You know, this has only like half a dozen lines. Again, you might have 5, you might have 50, you might have 100 small things. The important part as well is that last column around how long do you expect that will take? Because if it is that big thing, try and break it down into something that's more manageable, and something that when you're looking at this list, and then we're going to talk about it in a minute about putting these things into your day, you can go, all right, I've got a gap here of half an hour between when I finish you know, a certain commitment you might have and picking the kids up from school, or I've got to take my daughter to piano lessons and I'm going to be sitting in the car for half an hour while I wait for her to do her lesson. You know, what are a few things on my list that are less than 30 minutes that I can do while I'm in the car or anywhere? You know, it might be a phone call or researching something online or listening to a podcast. You know, I can slot that in because I've got time, because I know how long it should take. I know sometimes how long something we think will take and how long it actually takes is different, and we'll learn from that as we go as well. But you need to start somewhere. I rarely think that anything takes less than 5 minutes. Usually 15 is about my minimum, but everybody is different. Maybe you're quicker than me. But in the time it takes me to pick up my phone and think that I'm going to call somebody and then see a notification on Twitter, I check the it takes longer. Okay. Now, the idea is that you do this for each of those smaller rocks. So you start to gather this larger list of things to draw upon. But the important part as well is the when something needs to happen. So having them in that sequential order, that this needs to happen before that, so that you're not stuck with something in your list of activities to do for the day that you can't do because the prerequisite hasn't been met, because you hadn't, like, you can't sit down and have a conversation with somebody if you haven't organised the time to do that with them, and they might not be there or whatever for the day. So thinking about those things as well. So making that list. So obviously there's going to be a lot of things that are going to go on those lists, and if you've got 3 big rocks that are broken down into 3 to 5 smaller rocks, and then you're breaking those down into a whole list of pebbles, there can be quite a list. So the next thing is thinking about how will you keep yourself motivated to achieve what you want to achieve. So they talk, seeing is believing. So if you have achieved something in the past, recognise that. Think about what you have achieved in the last 12 months as well, and be proud of those things that you've achieved. Make sure that what you've got on that list, you believe you can achieve. And if you're doubting yourself, then think about what steps you might need to put in place to overcome that doubt. So it might be attending a workshop to learn how to do something if you haven't done it before. It might be taking a class in photography if that's what you need to do, so that you can be taught how to do it. But it's also important to make sure that you set yourself some form of reward at the end. Now, it might be as simple as saying, when I've achieved, these first 10 things on my list that I want to achieve within the next, 5 weeks or 3 weeks, at that point then I might go and get a manicure, or whatever it is that works for you. So what's that little incentive? And it could be as tiny as I might just take a bubble bath or something like that, but some time out for myself, or it could be, a weekend away or whatever works for you. But it has to work for you. It has to be an incentive that's going to be a reward for you when you've achieved a certain amount. So setting in some milestones there to give yourself those smaller bite-sized pieces to work through. So we've created a list, and these are things that you may want to achieve over the next 12 weeks or 6 months or even 12 months, and we'll work through that in a moment. But it's about setting some smaller goals, and it may even be a weekly milestone for you. So when you look at your list, think, okay, what could I realistically achieve? What's a little bit of a stretch as well, because if we aim too low and we achieve it, the satisfaction isn't there. But if we aim a little higher and we achieve it, then we feel good about it, and we feel like we deserve a reward. So make sure when you're setting some milestones for yourself in relation to those activities and those actions that you've just created a list of, that you're not going too easy, but also you don't want to set yourself up to fail. You don't want to say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to build this entire website, tomorrow, if you haven't even started, and you've got to do all of the, the images and all of the content and build the platform. So don't be unrealistic for yourself and set yourself up for failure, but also don't expect that, it should take you a year to build a website. That's probably a little long, and it might in hindsight, maybe it takes that long, but if you set a plan and create those milestones for yourself and have some little treats in there, some little rewards, that you actually do take a moment to pause and recognise. And as Mark said, you know, write these things forward in your diary, that these are the things that I want to have done by a certain date, so you can cross them off. And then when it's getting closer to that date, you've got that moment of urgency. And in other sessions, I play a little TED talk about procrastination, but often if we've got a deadline, everything happens in the last minute before the deadline. But yet, if we can pace ourselves and set those smaller milestones and benchmarks and have some form of reward in there, then that will just keep us going. And certainly with this program, and as Rita mentioned earlier, the hubs that will be starting next month will be helping you to do that by having a weekly dial-in where you'll be you know, working with others to keep on track, and obviously setting yourself, you know, those goals, but telling other people that you're going to do it, so you've got that bit of accountability there as well. So, but think about what is a driver for you, a reward for you, something that's going to incentivize you to actually achieve, because it is different for everybody. And you know, might not like bubble baths at all, and that might not work for you. So pick something that does. But visualize it as well. So writing what you're doing in a book or on a computer is great. We've written it down, we've made that list, but have some sort of visual available to you as well. So whether you put, you know, I'll just stick with bubble bath because that's just easy. Put a beautiful picture of, you know, some luxury spa bubble bath sort of thing on your screensaver, or stuck on your fridge, or wherever you see it most, on, you know, the steering wheel of your car, or wherever you spend the most amount of time. So you're seeing it quite regularly, and you then have that trigger in your mind to say, oh, I want that, so I have to get these things done.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yep, absolutely.
I own a float tank, so why not make a float?
Oh, there we go. Okay. So we just had a suggestion, if you didn't hear that, that Shannon, if you're in Toowoomba, it's in Toowoomba? Yep. If you're in Toowoomba, Shannon has a float tank. So rather than just a bubble bath, if you were at all... Okay, awesome. And there may be one in your town or nearby to you, if that is what works for you as well. But have it visual somewhere, even if it's written in words or a picture. I think images often work better. I know for myself, when I'm wanting to do something, I like to travel, so I will put a picture of wherever it is that I want to go on my fridge, and then yeah, we work towards that. It's like, oh, I need to get these things done so that I can get there, and having it visual is really important for me. So the other thing, and this is a little of what Rita started to ask before as well, you know, sometimes things need to stop, and we need to take something out in order to fit something else in. I can't get that out of the way for you. There we go. So if we think ahead again 1 year and think, what if things haven't worked? What happens if I don't do what I say I'm going to do? What happens if things all go wrong? And sometimes we have to think about that. What are the consequences of not doing these actions? And that could be personal, it could be professionally, it could be for your children or your family. If things don't go right, you might have to you know, go back and get a day job or something if you, you know, are not earning the revenue that you need because you haven't taken the actions that you need. And how would that make you feel? How would that impact your family? So think about, if I don't do this stuff in a year's time, what would that look like? Okay. And then think about what would be likely to make that happen. What are those roadblocks? What are those things that are going to potentially get in the way? And sometimes it's ourselves. More often than not, it's ourselves. We might be afraid of something. We might actually think, well, you know, it could be a reverse thing where I'm actually worried that if I am successful, as Mark said, you know, for 5.5 years, he worked 7 days a week and didn't take more than half a day off, and sort of lost touch a bit with his family. Are we frightened of that? So if that is a thing, write it down, because this is what you then have to manage around, and you have to make a contingency plan. It's, you know, in the world of finance, it's called risks and mitigants. What's the risk and how will you mitigate it? So if you know that this is a potential thing that's going to get in your way, either psychologically or physically, financially, whatever it might be, write it down. And then think, okay, how can I avoid that? How can I circumvent that? Whatever, you know, whatever the obstacle may be, how can you potentially prevent it from becoming something that means you will not succeed? Now, if you write down something that you think is going to potentially be a roadblock or an obstacle for you, and you don't know how you can possibly stop that from happening, or if you encounter it, you don't know how you can get around it or over it, under it, whatever it might be, please ask. The purpose of this group session is that, you know, we can help you, and certainly with the hubs ongoing, when these things arise, you've got the power of a group where someone else may have encountered that in the past and had a method of getting past it, or you know, or suggestions on what else you could do instead, you know, to get around. And if anyone's ever been on a road like that with sheep, you know that sometimes you just have to wait for the storm to pass as well. You just have to sit tight, but knowing that is the thing. Not getting trampled is another one. So now, sometimes finding ways to overcome our fears is really challenging, because they'll keep resurfacing, and it's not something that you can just go, oh, I've dealt with that once, I'll be right again. So having that peer network of people that you can be quite open with about what it is that you're afraid of can be really beneficial. So if you don't have that on your list, but a fear of something is an issue that you do have on your list, then really think about who you've got around you in your network that you can talk to about it, because often that's what's required, is to actually talk about it. You can read, you can listen, and those types of things, but sometimes you've just got to get it out and let it go, and that can help. So if you haven't got that on your list and fear is a factor, then just think a little bit more about who you can talk to about it. So some tools and techniques. Now, everyone has their own way of scheduling their day and getting through things. And sometimes even scheduling the day requires something in your schedule to do. So I actually have a reminder in my calendar for 8:45 p.m. each day, so that I sit down and look at what do I need to do tomorrow, and have I actually made that list? And is my allocation of time sufficient to achieve what I need to do, as well as keeping it balanced? So it's not all about work for me. I make sure that the things on my list also incorporate myself and looking after myself personally, and also my family. So make sure that your balance is right, but also thinking about the other essential elements that you have to fit into your day. You know, if you do have a day job, you have to fit that in, and this might be a side project and it has to work around that. So how much time can you really allocate to the things on these lists? Making sure, again, that you're not scheduling something into your day that cannot possibly happen because something else needed to happen first. So making sure you're always reviewing that sequential list, and that what you're putting in there does align to your goals. And Mark spoke about this as well, is it actually aligning with that story that you want to tell? Because if it's not, then reconsider it. And things are going to change along the way. So as you progress, you know, your goal or your story might change, and then you need to go back and reconsider those things on your list and see if they still align. So every day when you're adding these items into your list of things to do for the day, tomorrow or the week or however you schedule out, make sure that they do still align with your goal and that your goal hasn't shifted. Okay, don't do something just because it's on your list if it no longer adds value. There is a thing called an 80-20 rule. So often in business, we can get stuck working in our business rather than on our business. And if you do that, you can find that, you know, you can take up a whole day with doing stuff that doesn't in the end add value and help you move further towards that goal. So an 80-20 rule is if, you know, doing 10 things in a day, are 8 of them aligned to moving you forward and 2 of them, yeah, kind of fluffy stuff, you know, that maybe doesn't really. But try and follow that where you can. So really think about that with your day, and that's where if you are scheduling out a day, it can really help. I find numbering things off works for me. So if I have got 10 things on my list for that day that I need to do, are at least 8 of them, you know, actually helping me move forward towards those goals. Having a 15-minute task list is also a really handy technique. So you might have multiple lists of pebbles related to your different small stones, and of those you've put down how long you think things are going to take. If those little 15-minute tasks just kind of float around and you know, get a little bit lost sometimes, if you actually pull them together into a list. Now, I personally like to use Google Keep. It's just a nice, easy, free tool. Evernote is another one. There's lots of different types of tools you can use. You can write them on Post-it notes. It doesn't really matter, or just a whole list. But all of those little 15-minute jobs. So when you finish something else a little sooner than you expected, or you've got that 15-minute gap before lunch, or, you know, before you have to go and pick the kids up from swimming or something like that, you can just look at that 15-minute list and do something off it and cross it off, rather than picking up your phone and checking Facebook or, you know, whatever, okay? So having that 15-minute task list is really handy. Also doing sprints. Now, this is something that you might like to do with other people, perhaps in your hub, if you're joining in on a WiRE hub. Otherwise, you can certainly do it yourself, but where you might allocate a half day or even a full day to switching off your phone and making yourself a list. And it might be, you know, 5 things, it might be 20 things. It depends on the amount of time you've got. And if you've put on your pebbles list how long things should take, then that will give you an idea of what should fit in that list. And it's just sit down, head down, bum up, get those things done, one after the other after the other. You don't check Facebook in between. You may go to the bathroom, but you don't. No bathrooms. Okay, but you don't allow yourself to be distracted during that sprint. And if you're doing it with others, and obviously we have the benefit here of a co-working space, so if you have some sort of place where you can, you know, get together with other people where you're all just working, and you might say, all right, we're going to sprint for 2 hours or 3 hours, and then we're going to have a break, and we might have morning tea, and then we're going to get back into it for another 2 hours. You know, you can do that, because you're doing it with others. It's easier to stay on task, because you sort of, if you go to look up, it's almost like if you're in an exam, you look up and it's like, oh, they're still working, I better keep working. So it can be a really good way to get a lot done in a shorter period of time when you totally eliminate the distractions. So the other thing is making sure that you do have some form of diary or calendar that you can put these into. And this is both on a daily basis, so this is what I'm doing today, but also on that longer term basis of those milestones. So if you want to achieve a certain amount, you know, within the next 4 weeks, then 4 weeks into your calendar, you've got those things noted down so that you know, all right, that was my deadline for that. And you keep working towards that. So you keep reviewing it and working towards it to make sure that you get that done. The other thing is having an alarm or a timer. So if you have allocated yourself 30 minutes to do a particular task, then try and stick to that and learn from that, particularly if it's the task that may be repetitive and you've got to do it today, but you've got to do it again next week. If you had allocated in your Pebbles list that it was a 30-minute task, but then you actually find if you set a timer for it that maybe you can get it done in 20, or maybe it's actually taking you 45, then you need to adjust that on your list so that next week when you are putting that into your day again, that you're allocating a more realistic amount of time for it. Now, as a logical person, and if you've ever done a psycho test thing, a logistician is some of us, we're quite good with numbers and checklists and forms, but when it comes to something a bit more creative, where we might have to do a bit of design work, or we might need to do a bit of writing, then those things, they have no end. You can keep tweaking a Facebook post for like an hour if you let yourself. So if you're doing something, if you're not good at getting design particularly or creative tasks done, then set an alarm and say, all right, I've allocated myself 20 minutes for this task or 2 hours for this task, whatever it might be. Actually set an alarm, and when that alarm goes off, that's the end. Whatever you've done is done, and it will be good enough, and you can move forward and go forward from there, so that you don't get stuck in that cycle of being behind time and running out of time for the other things that you need to get done that day. So there's some pretty basic tools and techniques that you can use, but if you actually do apply them, it can make your day a lot more productive. And then if we have productive days, we feel better. It's good for the endorphins, and it makes us feel happy. We've achieved things, we've crossed things off the list. Oh, we get a little treat or reward at the end of the week or month or whatever as well. So that's a win as well. So fairly simple, but they actually require a conscious thought to apply them and make sure that that's happening for you. Okay, so this little picture I just thought was a really cute little rock on some nice little mossy bit, but keep moving, get started and keep moving. The benefit of being part of a hub is that you will have a weekly dial-in. Other people will know what you're working on, you will know what they're working on, you're keeping each other encouraged to just keep progressing. If you stop, it's much harder to get started again. And if you never start, well, you just don't go anywhere, and you end up another year down the track and nothing has happened. So if you're reflecting on those, consequences and what can go wrong, the benefit to just keep some momentum going every day. So the suggestion is to add three growth elements to your list of things to do each day. So 3 pebbles at least. Sometimes it might be more for you, but have those in there. And again, you're making that commitment to yourself, to your partner or your team, to your accountability group, in a hub, whatever it might be, that you will do these things, and then just keep rolling, just keep going. Because there's a quote, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You have to take that step. No one is going to do it for you, okay? But then you do have to take the next step and the one after that to keep going, to actually get where you want to get to. So I just like that little picture. So hopefully that is a little incentive for you to just keep going. So the other thing is recording where you're at today and then updating your progress weekly. You might do it daily even, but weekly. So I'm going to send you out a little journal that you can use, which will track. It's a little bit of, I guess it's a mindset piece as well as an activity piece. So recording how you feel about things. So whether you're feeling quite upbeat and happy and things are progressing well. Whether you've had a bit of a down day and maybe things weren't so good or things didn't go so well or you didn't achieve something. So by recording that on a regular basis, you'll start to see your patterns and your trends and what works for you, and then that can help you in forward planning as well. So if you know that, you know, Tuesdays are just a write-off for you, that, you know, for some reason on a Tuesday, maybe the kids have got 6 things on and you've got something else on and, you know, it's just never a good day, then obviously you can look to try and change that if you can, or at least recognize it and go, you know what, I'm not going to plan anything really important for a Tuesday because it'll just be disappointing at the end of the day if I haven't been able to do it. So I'm going to put in some really easy things that day that I can quickly cross off and still feel like I've accomplished something. Where, you know, maybe like Thursday or Friday might be a super productive day for you. Everybody's different, but you can start to recognize that. So I'm going to send you, everyone's got put their emails in, so I'll send that out to you afterward. A little journal that you can use just to track that. It also helps you allocate what will I do on these certain days in the week. So of your 7 days of a week, what am I trying to endeavour to accomplish each day? How do I feel about that? The other thing that's important with it as well is that this whole process can actually apply not just to your business, but to your personal life as well. So if you're, you know, trying to lose some weight or get, you know, fitter or healthier, if you're wanting to, you know, have a better social life, you know, spend more time with your partner, those types of things you can build into this as well, and you can add them. And, you know, when was the last time you had date night? Maybe you need to schedule a date night, you know, and put that in there as well. Because holistically, if our business overruns our life, then everything else suffers. Or if we find that we've got too much on and something has to come out, then having that written record of that can really help us determine what needs to go. Okay, what is it that needs to come out? And if it's, you know, I don't know what a TV show is at the moment, but
Netflix, anything.
Okay, yeah, oh, Game of Thrones, all right, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, then maybe you can't watch it every day. I don't know if it's on every day. But anyway, you can't do that. So maybe it needs to change. So you have to then evaluate what's really important to you and what needs to be in there and what needs to come out to make space for the things that are more important for you. So we're going to send you out that little journal and a little sort of quiz, a little, you know, start point record, so you can start to actually track. Because if you can't measure something, it's really difficult to know if you're improving. Where if you can measure it, then you can see, okay, I have made progress. I have accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in that day or in that week. So that is pretty much it. I sped through a little bit. I'm actually now ahead of time just because I knew Mark took up a little bit more time than I had expected. So I'd just like to open it up for questions. If anyone has questions about different elements of it, if you need support with how can you potentially overcome some obstacles, maybe if you had you know, one of the big rocks on your list and you weren't sure how to break that into smaller rocks, or the small rock into what some of those pebbles could potentially be. So we'll open it up for questions now from anyone.
The hub thing.
The hub?
Yeah,
yes.
Because I'm, as a few people probably do, I work from home on my own, and a day can get away ridiculously fast. But I'm accountable to you, because you're sitting next to me. Yeah. That's sometimes my name. So how is that going to work?
Okay, yep. So the question was around the WiRE hub.
Sure.
Okay. So the WiRE hub will be run in 2 separate time slots. So depending on what time of day suits you, we'll group you into groups of 6 to 8 in a smaller section. So dialing in on Zoom, like we're on this platform now, so you don't have to physically come together. So anyone can be connected from anywhere. The mornings, Monday morning at, I think it's about 10 o'clock, or on a Tuesday evening around sort of 7:30, where confirming what will suit most people best. So we might have like 30 or 40 of you that are wanting to dial in, let's say at 7 o'clock on a Tuesday evening. But you'll all dial in, and then what we'll do is break you up into smaller groups, and they'll be consistent. So each week that group will get together, around 6 to 8 ladies per group, and you'll have a leader within that group. So someone who will keep the time running and make sure that everyone gets to share. So the purpose is that you'll share what it is that you're working towards. So from today, you will have a little bit of homework to go home and just refine that list of pebbles and those list of goals, but define what it is that is going to fit within a 12-week milestone segment for you. Okay, so some of these might be longer term goals for you, but what do you believe you want to achieve, and what goal do you want to achieve in the next 12 weeks, or technically 14 weeks because it starts in 2, but in that 12-week period. So you'll come along, and in the first instance, you'll share that with the group. This is what I'm aiming to achieve. Then everyone will get to know that about each other, and then you'll determine what it is that you're going to work on for the next week, and you'll vocalize that. So again, everyone will know this is what you're working on. If you're unsure of anything, or you feel that you need some support or assistance, then you can put that out to the group and brainstorm a potential way, if there's an obstacle that you may have, brainstorm a way to move around that or through that or over it, so that you can confidently go into that week believing that you can achieve those things that are on your list. So in the first week you'll do that. Then when you come back in the second week, you'll be able to debrief then on what you did do, what you learnt, what you accomplished in that previous week. Again, helping anyone in that small group who may have had challenges where something arose that they weren't expecting, and weren't sure how to move forward, how to move through that. And again, it could be around fears, it could be around tangible obstacles. So working through those again as a group, so you've got that collaborative environment where you can get ideas that you might not have come up with on your own, and then again setting that commitment for the next week of what you will be working on. Now, having a lead person within that small group, those leads will then feed back up to myself or Tara. I think Tara is on the line, who'll take a session as well. And if we find that there's a common thread coming through from the groups, then we can look to, perhaps bring in a mentor or an expert who might be able to help. So it might be around, a lot of people are having problems getting engagement on social media, and that's an issue that you aren't able to overcome on your own as a small group. And it's a common thread amongst all the small groups that are running, then we could bring someone in and run a small session that can perhaps give some new ideas or techniques or tools that could be used to overcome those obstacles. We will also be having, so this is the first workshop, so we'll be having another 4 workshops throughout the year, but also a series of webinars. So the first webinar is starting next week, Tuesday. So those webinars will cover a lot of the content that may arise throughout those as well. So it may be a case where if there's a common thread coming through, but there's a webinar coming up, we can just recommend, join in on that particular webinar, and that may give you the information that you're needing to be able to progress forward, or the stage of business that you're at. So the webinars will be about a variety of different topics. So there's 10 of those happening over the course of the rest of the year as well. And then as required, if we need to adjust or add something in, then we'll play that by ear and try and be as flexible as we can around supporting those other things that come up that we haven't considered, that didn't come from our original roadshow, because all of the webinars and the workshops have been designed based on the feedback from the roadshow that we did. So 15 locations around the state, finding out what it was that people felt that they needed to know more about, learn more about, have more confidence in actually delivering within their own business. So that's what they've been designed. And then the hub sits alongside that with a specific goal. So we will ask you to come into that hub with a specific goal that you want to achieve in that 12-week period, obviously with various milestones within that for you, so that you can get it done. And that's the goal, is to get shit done. So, yeah. Okay. Rita? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, there'll be a calendar on the website maybe when all of those things are. So
that will be coming up shortly. So we've just, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So no, we're just trying to find the best times that are going to suit the most people. We know we can't probably say so.
Webinars be available
Afterward?
Yeah. So if we can't do it.
Yeah. So the question there was, will the webinars be available if you can't dial in live? Absolutely. So you still register. So just like today, a number of people registered for today's workshop, but to get it as a recorded version. And then you can watch it back in your own time afterward. But obviously you don't get the benefit of asking questions live, but you can then take any questions that you may have to your next hub call and ask them there. And then perhaps anyone who was on, you know, that can help answer them as well, or share. So, yeah. So any other questions on the line?
Yeah, I can just maybe quickly talk a little bit more about the hub. So it's very much around setting an entrepreneurial goal and working actively towards this goal over a 12-week period. And I guess the main benefit of the goal is the fact that you'll be part of a small group of like-minded peers who will actually feed in, give feedback, help, encourage, support. Plus you'll have access to the facilitator and then mentors coming in from outside as when particular issues are experienced, and also the opportunity to potentially also engage in individual coaching sessions. So it's very much about building, sharing and expressing knowledge through very, kind of open dialogue and thinking around issues, not just by yourself sitting in a workshop by yourself or just having a quick chat, but really sharing those ideas and also helping each other to find some solutions about particular problems that you may experience in moving from one particular point to actually achieving your goal. So, when we think about kind of examples of, maybe some goals that you may have, it could be anything. You may decide maybe to progress your idea over 12 weeks to a prototype stage, ready for market testing evaluation. Or you may already have a prototype that you want to test and validate over 12 weeks. So that could be a good goal. Or you may just want to focus to start or develop or execute your marketing campaign of your idea, or you may have one project or one product that you actually want to start getting out there through a marketing campaign. Or it may be that you want to start, develop and execute your personal branding campaign as an entrepreneur. That may be a goal that you want to reach. Or it may be also, whether if you're in the starting phases and you have your idea to really kind of start developing your business model. And we will have two webinars, one webinar on business models and one particular workshop on business model as well. But over the 12-week period, then you can develop that business model, including some business planning aspects, so that by the end of the 12 weeks, you could be ready to take that to the next level, whether it's trying to find funds for it or whatever that may be. Or it may be that you want to develop a funding pitch, working on a particular grant over 12 weeks that you want to reach. So there's, depending what's important to you that you want to actually reach over that 5 weeks, we're not going to tell you what it is. You're going to decide what it is, but you're going to have a group of support around you to actually help you to reach those goals, but most importantly, also hold you accountable. And that's why I think it is very important to kind of to really kind of commit to the idea of, okay, well, this is what I want to do and this is what I need to do over the next 12 weeks. So that commitment factor really needs to be there if you want to engage in these hubs. I guess it's very much about being open to feedback and open to share your ideas and so forth as you move through the hub process. So that's basically the hub kind of concept. By the end of this week or end of next week, we'll have a specific WiRE webpage, WiRE Hub webpage up, and you can go and have a look. get some more information about that and also sign up for that. There will be at this stage a couple of time slots, potentially 3 time slots. We're just looking at the times currently and what all the feedback came through in the WiRE hubs as well. And then we'll kick the hubs off beginning August. But in the meantime, I think what's very important of today's workshop is to really kind of go back after this workshop and think about the things that Joy has discussed, the exercises, because it will really set you up very, very well for starting the hub in a very good way, in a very productive way, so that you already kind of have something on the table when you know, for that first session or in the hub program. Is there maybe any other questions around the hubs at this stage that you may be unsure of and maybe just want to know a little bit more about it? No questions? Okay, so, and also, if there's any other questions around what Joy discussed today, please, you know, feel free to also shoot through after this particular workshop to send through some questions. We'll collate that and also send that through to Joy as well, so that you know you can also have some more feedback on particular issues. There's a couple of issues here that came through on the chat. The one is from Melanie, and she said, "I'd love to find out what font Joy has used in this presentation. It's lovely and engaging." So, Joy, I don't know what font you've used.
Yeah, if it's the one that's on the screen at the moment, that's called Berkshire Swash. If it's the smaller print, this one here is called Quicksand.
Okay.
And they're Google fonts. Thank you.
There's another question from Emma here. On what basis will the groups be created? For instance, similar business types, ideas, etc. We had a long think about that, and ultimately it comes down to the practical that participation will occur according to time slots. And we also had a lot of discussion around what would be the best to have similar businesses or different businesses in hubs. And all the feedback that really we've been getting is it's probably better to get diverse groups. As the more diverse a group is, the more knowledge you can share and the more you can have diverse ideas around a particular issue. However, as Joy was mentioning as well, with the hubs, say for instance there's 25 or 30 that sign up for a particular time slot, and during that time slot you will be divided in your particular hubs. You will also have access to the greater group of 30 women during certain occasions, because we do want to actually share between hubs as well. So there will be opportunity for that. And another aspect that we also linking to the hubs is a forum. It's being created at the moment, so that it's not just 1 hour a week, but during the week there will be active discussion and chats and sharing of different ideas. So you don't necessarily stop just after your 1 hour. You can have engagement right throughout the week with your hubs or with other hubs through the forums as well. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to see if there's any other. Yeah, so a copy of the presentation slides. That will be sent to you, as well as Joy has also mentioned the journal as well, and I will also probably in a couple of days or so the presentation itself will be available as well, and a link will be sent to you where you can find that to actually view this again. So all of that will be sent to you. If you haven't received all of this in the next, probably by Monday, just shoot an email to us, and we'll make sure that you actually get these materials as well. Any other questions? Okay, Joy?
Yeah, so just one other thing. I guess if you have found value in the session today, then it would be really helpful if you could share a comment on Facebook, so that more women will know about the program and can potentially join in the future. Obviously, they're welcome to come to webinars. You know, there's one next week, and you know, we'll look to run further workshops as well, so that they can join in. So if you can start to share it out there into your network, that would be great, so that more women can gain the value from this particular program. And the other thing is the fact that, you know, Mark did join us today, which was great. We had him here for breakfast along with Startup Muster. So I just want to put a little plug out for Startup Muster. If you do have a startup business and you want to be recognised for being part of the region that you're in, Startup Muster is a paper that's produced which records where different startups are located in the country, how they're progressing, you know, how many staff, you know, what jobs are being created. So if you go to startupmuster.com, Mon was just here. I was going to get her to come in, but Mark talked a little longer than we'd planned, and she's gone now. Yeah, so jump on startupmuster.com and have a look at filling out that survey, or suggest it to anyone else. It would be really, really great to have a really accurate reflection of how many startups, you know, how many new businesses are being created in the regions, particularly by women, reflected in that report, because that is what goes to government and other organisations when they're looking at potential funding, you know, activities and those types of things. So the more we can say we're out here, we're doing stuff, don't forget about us, you know, the better. So obviously through the WiRE program, we're collating the information as well, but Startup Muster has been running for a few years now, and it's going to be an ongoing sort of live process as such, but they collate data annually, and it's being collated at the moment. It closes, the collection period is up until the end of July. So if you can jump on there and do that, it's for the benefit of the entire state, really. The more regional businesses we can have being reflected as being started, and then obviously the more by women, the better as well. So we don't miss out just because we didn't fill in a form. So yeah.
You will also receive an evaluation of today's workshop, so please provide us with that feedback, because it helps us to see whether we're on the right track. We still got a number of workshops to go and webinars, so we'd like to get your feedback on, you know, not only the good things about the feedback, but also things that you think we can do better and so forth, because we really want to improve every time we present a workshop and we present a webinar as well. Okay, is there any other questions from anybody out there?
I think I'd like to just know broadly where this came from, this whole idea and how it's funded.
Yep.
You know, that's information.
Sure. So the question was, how did the WiRE program evolve and how is it funded? So Rita, did you want to take that one on?
Yeah, sure. It's actually, the WiRE program is a program that we've actually been thinking about for a number of years. Probably about 3 years ago or so, my research group within university, we've been very much involved with the development of international women entrepreneurs, and we've been very successful in securing funding for international women. And at that stage, I've really been thinking about how we can actually find the funds to actually provide capacity building and supported by research for our own women in our own regions. And at that stage, we had several workshops with Kieran, the Queensland Rural Regional Remote Women's Network, to just kind of see whether this idea may have legs, whether there's a real need out there, etc. And then the federal government had a call for grants last year for the Women in STEM and Entrepreneurship program, and we were just ready to apply for that. So we've put a very, very strong case forward. Joy and David from Startup Toowoomba and Fire Station 101, which is Innovation Centre in Ipswich, as well as a Queensland Rural Regional Remote Women's Network. Our partners, we came together and we put in a bid for a grant, and we were successful in this. I think it's a wonderful time currently because the federal government have got an agenda to progress women, especially in entrepreneurship and in the science, technology, etc. area as well. But also in Queensland, the Queensland government has got a major push towards entrepreneurship, innovation, and so forth. So, they sometimes say that. The idea is very important, but I think it's that idea come at the right time. And I think everything has worked together now for us to be at a point where this program is just moving from strength to strength. We have more than 300 women that subscribe or registered in our program. And I guess what we want to provide in the WiRE program is to provide different levels of engagement. You can go very lightly through the webinars and the workshops, but then we have also very interactive, deep engagement through our boot camps, and we've got another one coming up in Chinchilla in August. The promotion for that will start flowing through later this week and early next week. And then obviously our hub program is really our flagship around this program, and it's quite unlike other programs where rural, regional, remote women can come together and support each other and engage with also mentors and facilitators and experts feeding into a very intensive process over 12 weeks to actually help you get where you want to go over 12 weeks. And it's all about support, and that's what the WiRE program would like to provide, is the support, but also the engagement, and also the platforms to do that as well. Joy, is there something maybe that I've missed?
No, I think that covers that, pretty thoroughly. So
okay, well, it is 1 minute to 12, so that means
I've got 1 minute to tell you what your homework is.
Sure.
So you obviously only had a limited time to write today, so you may not have got through writing down all of the pebbles in particular. So you really need to try and finish that today, if possible, but at least before the end of the week. While it's still fresh in your mind. It's a working document, so it doesn't stagnate, it doesn't go in the drawer. You want it to be something that you're actively reviewing on a daily basis, so make sure you get it filled out as much as you can with all of those pebbles, and then utilise some of those other tools and techniques to actively put them into your day. And you can start doing that today. Maybe not today, but tomorrow, but today, so that you can really start to get a roll on this. Just because the hubs don't start until the beginning of August doesn't mean you have to wait until the beginning of August to get started. So do that, but be sure to fill out those lists this week.
Okay, thank you very much, Joy. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. We will also send out a program of all the dates and the topic areas for the webinars coming up, as well as the workshops. So please join us again, and looking forward to seeing you next month in the hub. I hope some of you will sign up for the hubs, and looking forward to engaging with you again later in the program. Joy, thank you very much for your presentation today. I know you're off overseas for the next couple of weeks, also on entrepreneurial ventures, so enjoy that and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks. Bye.